Hi, everybody, and welcome. I am Dr. Dan Kalish, and I'm here to talk to you today about the origins of intestinal bacterial overgrowth. Everything SIBO related that ties back to H. pylori, gallbladder dysfunction, and yeast. This is a free talk. It is sponsored in part by me, Kalish Institute, and in large part by Diagnostic Solutions Laboratory, who has been a partner with the Kalish Institute forever since they started. I've been around longer than they have, but that's kind of true and kind of not true. So Tony Hoffman and David Brady, Jeff, all the people that run Diagnostic Solutions, we were at a conference a couple years ago, and I walked in a room and they were all there. I was looking around, I was going, "Whoa, we're like getting old here. We've been at this for 30 years. I don't know, 35 years, running labs, seeing patients, teaching classes. Diagnostic Solutions is like got the coolest people on the planet. I've really known them since I was a kid practically, you know. I'm almost 60 now. I've known these guys since we were all in our 30s. And so it's a really good group of people. It's a really trusted lab. You can't get better clinicians or lab people than Tony and David and Jeff and all the team that they've assembled over there. Anyways, good group. So for me, for those of you that this is the first one of these that you've been to, I am Dan Kalish. I founded the Kalish Institute. I've trained over 7,000 practitioners. My goal is to get successful people in practice doing functional medicine so you all can help people. And I realize that that involves telehealth and running your business and figuring out how much to charge. One of the most important things I do for every one of my mentorship students when they join the mentorship class is I talk to them one-on-one about how much they're charging. 100% of the time, that's not true. 99% of the time, over the last 18 years I've been doing that, the person's undercharging. Once in a while, I get somebody who's got the right price, but it's rare. So we care that you guys make enough money to support your families, support yourself, that you can do good work, you can interpret labs, you can work with patients, and just put this whole package together so you can have a super successful functional medicine clinic and be in practice as long as you want and keep yourself super fit, super healthy as well. In the last 10 or 12 years, I've been working with Richard Lord. Prior to that, the early part of my career, I worked with Dr. Marty Hins, Dr. Bill Timmons. So I've had 6, 8 years with Bill, 10 years with Hins, 10, 12 years with Richard. I you add all that up, it's like 20, 25 years of being educated by the leading scientists in our field on lab interpretation. So I've got a lot of stuff stuck in my head from all that work. If you want a free GI map masterclass, just scan this code here. It'll take you right to that thing. And you got to remember, you scan the QR code, right? And then you got to remember DSL24, DSL24 at checkout. So take a picture of this, scan it, write down, or take a picture of DSL24, and you can get access to our free masterclass, which is specifically on how to interpret the GI map and get into more detail, okay? It's a good little class, and it doesn't take, you can do it in a weekend easily. It's not a big deal. And it's free. Did I say it's free? It's free if you scan that QR code and you type in DSL24. And we'll for sure send you guys out emails saying all that if for some reason you were driving or something right now and you couldn't write it down, whatever. All right, so now the work that I do is predicated on these 3 body systems: adrenal or hormone testing, GI, and organic acids. And we're going to go through some slides, going to talk a little bit about treatment-resistant SIBO. Then I want to show you a couple of cases, and we'll design a couple of programs so you can see how this works in the real world. If you are so intrigued and you like this idea of learning how to interpret labs, then you should join one of our boot camps, my mentorship class, whatever. We're starting new classes all the time. And in all the classes that I teach, you can submit, this is the paid ones, not the free ones, right? In the ones that you pay for, you can submit your own labs from yourself, from your patients, and we review them in class in real time. And you learn a lot that way. And when you are in a class and you're submitting labs and there's another 10 doctors in that class and they're submitting labs, you learn this work incredibly quickly. I think of it as an immersion technique. So like when you are when you're learning a language, you could try to memorize a language, or you could just go to that country and immerse yourself in the language. So at the Kalish Institute, for the boot camps and my mentorship and our level 1 certification, all this stuff, it's all immersion. It's all you're in the class looking at labs with real patients in real time. And that's what we're trying to do because people learn super fast. The learning is like 3 or 4 times faster when you have that immersion experience and you're confronted with a problem that you have to solve. There's all kinds of research on this too. There's, how people learn when there's a problem to solve. So wait, the problem that we're trying to solve today is treatment-resistant SIBO. So we're not talking about easy SIBO. Easy SIBO is person comes in, they have SIBO, you treat them, and then they're better, and then they never come back. That's not treatment resistant. Treatment resistant is they come in, they have SIBO, you treat them for SIBO, they either get better and then it comes back like a year later, which is treatment resistance, right? Or they never really get better. They get a little better, but not really better, which is also treatment resistant. So you could have a miracle cure from that first round of SIBO treatment, but the problem comes right back 6 months or a year later, year and a half later, or you tried the SIBO treatment and it just didn't work. And here's a hit list of the things that you should think about. And this is based on my personal experience and my work with leading experts in this field. Like I've had many discussions, some of you may know Ben Lynch, with Dr. Lynch about this, Bree Wieselman about this, lots of different people that have extremely good clinical knowledge in this area, and also with my own classes and the way that I teach and my own patients. So this is based on, it's not like a personal opinion thing, this is sort of what I've sussed out from being in this industry for such a long time, is that the most common probably reason why people are treatment resistant, have a treatment-resistant SIBO issues is because of gallbladder problems, okay? So we're gonna look at gallbladder today and see how you can start to correct for that. The next would be stomach and HCl-related issues. The next would be pancreatic enzyme problems. A really common one, and we have one of the case studies on this, would be a yeast overgrowth issue, okay? And then you can also have motility problems, which is kind of what SIBO is, right? Is the ability, or the inability of the body to actually conduct normal peristaltic action and get the food contents pumped through properly, okay? So this is a pretty dense slide, but it's trying to summarize all these different things. So we're gonna talk about, and people don't talk about gallbladder enough, and I think it's one of those things where you kind of see it on the labs, oh, there's a problem with, steatocrit is off, maybe there's a gallbladder problem, but people don't take it very seriously. We had a case this morning in one of the classes that had, on an amino acid test, low taurine and low glycine. And taurine and glycine are the 2 amino acids that are used to break down, to produce bile. So you can break down all the bacteria in the gut and, emulsify your fat and all the things that bile does. So this is a super important issue, and we see this commonly in our practices. And it kind of can go unrecognized. So we'll look at a stool test in a minute. You can see it clearly on a stool test, but also be aware of times when it's related to low taurine and low glycine on an amino acid profile. You may see it in that way as well. I've had several patients with it presenting that in that fashion. So we're talking about bile production, not enough taurine, not enough glycine, not enough bile in general. Stomach acid production problems that could be due to stress, could be due to dehydration, Pancreatic enzyme production, same kind of thing, could be due to stress, could it be due to not enough raw foods in the diet. We're also thinking about the lack of motility in the small intestine. The small intestine is just not contracting very well. That could be something simple like a serotonin deficiency, which could be from a tryptophan deficiency. So amino acids can drive a lot of these different problems that we're talking about. You could have some kind of gut immune function that's disrupted. That could be from a problem with secretory IgA and adrenal related issues or chronic stress. Whatever is happening there, the bacteria are starting to overgrow in the small intestine, right? There's inflammation, there's damage to the tissues going, and then people are on a roller coaster in not a good way. So bile has a strong antibacterial effect. So when you produce bile properly, it kills the bad bacteria in the small intestine. If you don't make enough bile, then those bad bacteria in the small intestine can proliferate. Stomach acid, obviously it's an acid, right? Very antibacterial. Pancreatic enzymes also. So a lack of bile, stomach acid, or pancreatic enzymes can create this problem. That's probably the most common reason, some version of this. A lot of doctors use HCl and digestive enzymes, but it's oftentimes the gallbladder part that's being missed, or sometimes all 3 of these are missed. It's so simple, but just missed. So, and in general, if you see a bile, a stomach acid, or a pancreatic enzyme issue on the lab, you should treat that first before you jump on the SIBO, because you may inadvertently, unintentionally, completely eliminate the SIBO by getting the bile or the stomach acid or the pancreatic enzymes to their appropriate level. Again, because all of these have antibacterial actions in the small intestine, and if you're not having sufficient levels of them, that in and of itself could cause a problem. I know that seems so simple, but some of my most complex patients are the most simple. So true. We had one, this was maybe 4 years ago, super complicated constipation case. Her entire problem was just low glycine. She didn't have enough glycine. It showed up on the lab because I did the amino acid testing. Low glycine, gave her glycine. She started to make bile appropriately. This lifelong constipation and horrible GI problem cleared up. And you wouldn't necessarily think, oh, glycine is going to fix a GI problem. But if you're thinking organ system wise, gallbladder, stomach, pancreas, check those, fix those. We talked about this last week in the mentorship class about one of the doctors in the class was just saying, I'm just getting all these miracles just from using pancreatic enzymes. Heavy on, what did she say? I think she said something like, I'm heavy on the enzymes. I'm like, okay, great. It's better than drinking a lot of vodka or something. Just give a person high dosages of enzymes with food, without food, just get them in, and boom, all of a sudden you start to clear up these problems. So we just don't want to miss the basics. And if they have SIBO on a SIBO test, it still could be there because of one of these issues. So you want to fix these fundamental problems, first, probably, just to see if that's really what's doing it. Okay. You could have mucosal immunity issues. That would be more stress and secretory IgA. Oh, it could be the commensal bacteria, and we'll look at those in a minute too when we see the labs. And then for those of you that are into mechanical structural work, you can have an ileocecal valve problem. If you don't know about that, you should probably look that up and read about it a little bit and find a practitioner in your area that knows how to treat the ileocecal valve. That's a hands-on manipulative technique, very effective. So here's the pathophysiology of SIBO. I don't want to bore you to death with that, but basically you want to think about, is the small intestine functioning properly? And then we're thinking about solutions, right? So stomach acid, betaine HCl in a supplement form, acidify the stomach. That helps with the food contents, then destroying the bacteria that might enter the stomach. And then when that more acid containing food hits the small intestine, that's the trigger for the pancreas to release its enzymes, and things go better all the way down from there. Okay, then with the gallbladder, and again, this is all lab-based, you don't have to guess about this. If you're not producing enough bile, and that's not getting into the small intestine, and you're not producing enough pancreatic enzymes, and that's not getting into the small intestine, then of course the bacteria are going to overgrow. And gallbladder support is super simple. I'll write up a couple of programs so you can see the different supplements that we use. Pancreatic support, super simple. There's even some products that combine the two together, so you can just give one supplement to cover gallbladder and pancreas. When I'm treating gallbladder problems, I actually prefer to use a single product just for the gallbladder, because those are obviously stronger, and it gives you a little more definitive answer as to whether this is a gallbladder issue or not. But that is a sleeper problem you're going to see frequently. Now, it could also be just a straight up motility problem. So the small intestine's not contracting properly. And then you think, well, what helps regulate or does regulate the contraction of the small intestine? And one of the main things that you would think of would be serotonin, right? That's one of its jobs, is to create the peristaltic contractions in the intestinal tract. And so 5-HTP and tryptophan deficiencies can contribute to this whole problem. If there's a mechanical aspect to this, you can also have injuries. If you're a cyclist, you know what being doored means. If you're not, I'll explain it. You're riding your bike down, in some busy city like San Francisco or New York or whatever, and there's a driver that parked their car and decided to throw their door open to get out, and you didn't see it in time, and whoof, you go right into the door. So that happened to me when I was like around 25, and I took an edge of a door right in my gut, and it was a pretty bad injury. And I had scarring and tissue damage to my intestinal tract just from that massive impact of riding 30 miles an hour into a door, And you see it also with people who have been through abdominal surgeries or have had other kinds of abdominal injuries, but post-surgical adhesions and restrictions in the motility of the intestinal tract are super common. And so visceral manipulation for the ileocecal valve, I mentioned earlier, visceral manipulation for the small intestine, incredibly impactful. And again, if visceral manipulation is a new term to you, you can just Google it later, visceral manipulation. Dr. John Upledger and the Upledger Institute trains practitioners worldwide in how to get motility and mobility back into the various organs. They have specific techniques to drain the gallbladder and get the gallbladder functioning better. They have very specific techniques to get the small intestine working better, and very effective. It's hands-on work. It could be done by a physical therapist, a massage therapist, a chiropractor, an osteopath. Upledger himself is an osteopath, but he's trained, and his teachers have trained, thousands and thousands of people in this visceral manipulation technique. So sometimes that's enough. You do some gallbladder support, send them out to visceral manipulation for 2 or 3 sessions, problem solved, okay? But at its heart, SIBO is a motility or contraction problem in the small intestine, and that doesn't allow the normal processes to occur and the bacteria build up, just like you'd have a buildup in a pipe or a hose that was kinked or something, right? So that's something to always keep in mind. There could be a mechanical or structural component to it. Intestinal motility too, large intestine, you can have problems down there as well. And serotonin, there's a little article on that, the role of serotonin in GI motility. And we had a doctor that took the mentorship class, it was a long time ago, maybe 15 years ago, and he had lifelong constipation that was completely relieved when he started to take 5-HTP. And I was like, whoa, I understand the mechanism there. So you need to have serotonin to have normal contraction of the gut. And at its heart, SIBO is a problem with contraction of the gut. Then we could talk for hours, and probably have in a lot of different classes, on the microbiome and how the role of good bacteria have a function here. And so again, on the lab testing, you can see these patients that have commensal bacterial imbalances, and commensal bacterial imbalances will inevitably lead to SIBO. Does that make sense? So in other words, if you have a robust and healthy good microbiome, the good organisms are there in abundance, in diversity, with all the different ways they should be there, then you're not going to have a problem with SIBO. You're not going to really have those two things at the same time, okay? And I should mention, if you have questions, just type them in. I'll try to get to them at the end, right? So one way to completely offset SIBO is to get the commensal or good bacteria back online completely. And that happens through polyphenols and fiber. Polyphenols and fiber, prebiotics, probiotics, butyrate. There's maybe 4 or 5 things. I'll write them out when we do it. We can do a protocol on that, how to restore a healthy microbiome. And that could indirectly completely reset the SIBO problem. I don't think you can have, if you have a perfectly healthy microbiome, all the commensals are good, I don't think it's possible to get SIBO, okay? So this is another kind of crutch problem that could underline your difficult SIBO cases. And if you fix the SIBO and it comes back, it's very possible that that out of balance commensal bacterial problem, that out of balance microbiome, is still present. So that's another thing. And again, we'll see this on the labs. I should write all these down because, well, we'll go through them. But I want to design protocols. If I forget to design a protocol, just type it in and I'll do that, right? Now, there was a time when I worked with Alison Seebecker, who is the founder and creator of this whole SIBO movement. She is one of the best doctors I've ever met. She's an incredibly great scientist. She was a great clinician, although I think she retired from her practice a while ago, and super smart, super on top of it person. And she referred me several patients back in the day. This is a long time ago. My son was like in grade school. So it's like, I don't know, 15 or 20 years ago, who had parasites. And she was like, Dan, this patient has a parasite. Could you deal with it? I don't want to treat their SIBO until I know that the parasite is gone, because the SIBO might be coming from a parasite. Okay? So even people that are very well versed in SIBO understand that a parasitic infection like crypto or giardia or E. histo could be behind the SIBO. And this would be the recurrent SIBO people 100% of the time, because you'll knock the SIBO down, the giardia gets a little goes away a little bit, but then 6 weeks, 8 weeks later, everything's back because the major infection, which is the parasitic infection, didn't get handled. So you really have to screen for parasites in everybody that you treat SIBO for. Okay, intestinal villi, malabsorption, and here we go. This is what I want to talk about. So on the labs to lifestyle front, right? This is meaning you're running a lab and then you're trying to figure out what's the lifestyle change going to be, including some supplements, but also dietary changes. If you see low short chain fatty acid producing bacteria on the lab testing that you're doing, or depending on the company you use, you may see low short chain fatty acids on the actual test, you want to increase dietary fiber. If you see low polyphenol markers, and we're going to look at an omics test from Diagnostic Solutions today, along with the GI map, we're going to kind of compare them. And I'll show you the low polyphenol markers. If those are low, then you want to increase fruits and vegetables and supplement with polyphenols in the short run. Okay. And we'll talk about polyphenols in more detail in a minute. So the way it works with the commensals is you eat fiber, you make the short chain fatty acid producers, you make hydrogen producers, you make hydrogen consumers. And if this is all in the large intestine, not small intestine, obviously. So in the large intestine, if this is all balanced out, you're making hydrogen gas, but there's a whole other group of bacteria that are consuming that hydrogen gas. So guess what? It all works out. Okay, because the hydrogen gas that one group of bacteria are producing is the food supply for this other group of bacteria. And hydrogen is actually important and healthy for you in that context. High abundance commensals. So this is the top of the gut microbiome food chain. These are the ones that there's huge amounts of them. And they're going to be breaking down a wide array of complex carbohydrates into simple sugars, okay? Fibers, they're breaking down fibers. And that's going to stimulate the growth of this other class, the ones that are making hydrogen and consuming hydrogen. It's a hierarchy of these organisms. The one group leads to the other, leads to the other. But it's polyphenols and fiber that set the stage for this cascade of these different organisms to kind of roll themselves out. It's not that complicated. If the person can't eat the fiber or won't eat the fiber, just give them a fiber supplement, you know? And this is the one that's kind of the most famous right now. And this is on all the lab testing that we do. And kind of everyone's talking about it. So I thought we should just mention it for a moment. Akkermansia muciniphila. This was my favorite, but now I feel like it's so popular that it's kind of, I feel like a little disingenuous to say it's my favorite, but if you know me from like 5 or 10 years ago, you can know, oh yeah, this really was Dan's favorite. Just that now it's like super popular. And it's super popular because an incredibly brilliant scientist came out with a supplement form of Akkermansia, believe it or not. Strangely called Akkermansia, and the company's called Pendulum. You can buy it from Fullscript or wherever you get your supplements. So you can actually buy Akkermansia like you can buy Lactobacillus now. But this one is like extra important because it's named for what it does. Mucin lover, mucin Philly, like Philadelphia is like the city of love, right? Mucin Philip. So it cruises along the mucosal lining of the gut, living on and eating the mucin itself, keeping that layer of the gut healthy, good integrity, keeping the immune system in a good place, keeping the inflammation down. It's pretty amazing. It's been compared to, I mean, it just does like everything. It does correction of metabolic disorders if you have the right amount of Akkermansia. It's an anti-inflammatory, it's an immune boosting thing. It's just a kind of good for everything. And if you see it low in a patient, you should definitely try to replace it, okay? And it's been tied to weight loss, so that always gets everybody's attention. But this is just a good example. All these organisms are similar. All the commensals are similar. They have their little niche or their role. They have their food supply. In the case of Akkermansia, it's mucin. I don't know. In the case of desulfiviro-pyger, D-pyger, the food supply is sulfur compounds. In the case of Faecalibacterium prausnitzii, which we'll look at in a minute, the food supply is fiber. In some organisms, it's hydrogen, right? Some of them make hydrogen, some of them consume hydrogen, some of them consume mucin, some consume fiber. But if you start with polyphenols and fiber, then all the organisms start to function properly on the way down. And then if that's not enough and you want some more treatment options, these are things that are also good for Akkermansia. We're just picking on one organism so you can kind of see. But berberine is really effective. inulin from chicory root and things like Jerusalem artichoke, very effective. And then here's a chart you can snap a picture of here with just a few of these organisms: M. smithii, deep hydra, Akkermansia, and then what are the treatments? Oh, and I mentioned deep hydra, sulfur amino acids are actually what feed it, like chondroitin sulfate. Who would have known that? Give chondroitin sulfate and it makes a person's gut better. You can also use methionine, cysteine, taurine. Those are all sulfur-containing amino acids. For deep hydra, M. smithii solution is fiber, like from beans and nuts and whole grains, and so on and so on. Okay, so you have all these different options, but primarily it comes down to polyphenols and fiber. But there are these one-off organisms like deep hydra or Akkermansia that have slightly different solutions. If you join us late, you can scan that QR code. You get free access to the GI Masterclass on a GI map. Type in DSL24. Okay, QR code, free class. And let's look at some labs. All right. Hang on a sec. We'll pull up some tests here. So first of all, this one just came in today. You can see the date on it, 3/28. And we reviewed this morning in class. So this is a GI map from Diagnostic Solutions. And we're going to ignore huge portions of this test because we're focusing on just a few things here. But let's look at the commensal bacteria. And the one that we just spent a couple minutes talking about, you can see right there, it's low. Akkermansia, low. What would you do about that? You can give Akkermansia now in a supplement form if you want. How cool is that? Or if you want to be a more visionary person, you could give prebiotics, probiotics, and fiber and polyphenols. Those are kind of overlapping. I kind of said some of those things mean the same as the others, but basically polyphenols and fiber. And you can even use something called butyrate. So then we look at the opportunistic bacteria. There's one that's elevated, but doesn't look that bad. And then you see, wait a minute. This SIBO patient has a yeast overgrowth. It's very common for yeast to be one of the underlying, if not the underlying reasons why SIBO is present in the first place. So you would want to treat the yeast first because that may clear up the SIBO, and it doesn't usually work the other way around. So with an extreme high on Candida markers like this one, again, this was just in class this morning, you want to treat yeast first. And then you look at the gallbladder marker, and the gallbladder marker is okay, steatocrit, but the enzyme marker not so good. So this person needs digestive enzymes and a yeast treatment, and I would do that first, and then see if the SIBO is still an issue or not. All right, now I have, and this patient, by the way, had a pretty intense history. I remember it because it's just a few hours ago. So dropped out of high school, had a violent and abusive upbringing with a violent and abusive parent, had some pretty significant health problems even as a young teenager, and now, 20 years later is just kind of suffering. So like a huge emotional overlay on this, but still we could work along these lines. So we've got the yeast marker. Yeah, we've got the enzyme marker, elastase, and or yeast markers, a little dysbiosis, but not much, and then a problem with Akkermansia. So let's design a protocol. I'm going to design one or two protocols, then I'll get to all the questions, okay? Or as many as I can. Let's try that. Oops, wrong one, sorry. No, there we go. Oops. I don't know what my computer just did there. That was interesting. It just did its own little thing. It's kind of like my dog. Sometimes I look at my dog and I just realize she is just going to do whatever she wants, So much for all that training. Okay, here we go. So right off the bat, we're going to use enzymes. I don't know what kind. I'm just using pure encapsulations, but pick your favorite company. Every company has digestive enzymes. And, like the student was saying the other day, load them up on them, give them 2, 3 times a day, more even. Just see what happens when they start all of a sudden get the right amount of enzymes in their system. And if you want to see the actual physical brand here, I'll show you. Hang on a second. You can tell I had a brain class right before this one. Ultra Digest. See if that pops up. Yeah. Digestive Enzymes Ultra. Okay. Now it's going to have some things in here that help with fat absorption, but it's a pretty broad spectrum enzyme product. And it's certainly not completely gallbladder centric. Okay. So you should have one of these in your arsenal that you use for general digestive enzyme support. But you should have one other product that you use. And again, whatever brand you like to use, they'll have this similar product with similar ingredients. I'm using Pure as an example here, but Designs has it, Ortho has it, everybody has it. So this one's called Digestion GB from Pure, GB for gallbladder. So this is just a straight up gallbladder product. So it's got the ox bile, a fair amount of it, a couple 100 milligrams. It's got these other enzymes, and it's got like taurine, we mentioned, that's what you use to make bile acids, some milk thistle, some turmeric for the liver gallbladder, kind of working better. So if you know there's a gallbladder problem, or if you even suspect it, even if the lab testing doesn't show it, before you jump into a SIBO treatment, just try something like this. Try this for a couple weeks, 2 or 3 weeks, see if it makes the person feel better. So I like these combination products. They have a little bit of everything in them. You should also know about the heavy duty stuff. This is an old company, old fashioned company, been around since the 60s, but so have I. So has my car. I like things from the 60s. Ox bile, 500 milligrams, Allergy Research Group. This is awesome. They just said, screw it. Let's just make something for gallbladder that just has one thing in it and make it really strong. So if you are ever wondering, does this person have a gallbladder problem? Just use this. This is not, it's the opposite. It's not a combination product. It's all fancy pants with little different ingredients. It's just straight up ox bile, 500 milligrams in a single pill. Give one of these with each meal. If it's a gallbladder problem, you're going to know right away. Okay. So it's good to know heavy duty, strong product, Allergy Research Group, ox bile, and then lighter weight combo product like the Ultra one that I showed. Or no, Digestion GB. And you can choose, which one you want, if you want to be more extreme or you want to be more broad spectrum. Okay. Or you can just use the plain old enzymes as I am here. Then you want to do a Candida protocol. So I use AC Formula 2 and some additional grapefruit seed extract. Many different options here. We don't have time to get into, but this is just like a common protocol. What did we say? Enzymes, and the Akkermansia. I don't know if you do the Akkermansia right away, but let's say that you do this 2 months, 2 months of killing the yeast and using the enzymes. And then when that's done, after completed, you could use the Akkermansia. And that's from Pendulum. And I don't know, would you do 1 or 2 of those twice a day, something like that? 1 to 2 twice daily to really get the Akkermansia levels back up. And then to treat the sort of broader spectrum issue, I use poly prebiotic from Pure. The only hard thing about that product is pronouncing it. And this product is a prebiotic, poly, pre. You can get it in a capsule form, but I always use the powder. So poly prebiotic powder, what do you think it has in it? Okay, from Pure Encapsulations. Yes, you guessed it right. Polyphenols, cranberry, blueberry, pomegranate, and fiber. That's what prebiotics are. So it's just all of them crammed together in one product. It's convenient and works really, really well. There's another one that people like a lot, the Megaspore people. They have that too. In fact, I've got a bottle of it right here, I think. Yeah, Mega Pre. Can you see that? This is a really good company, Mega Pre. Everything they make is good. So let me just show you that. Just so you're familiar with the brands. Let's see, they call that Mega Pre. I like the powders. I don't know, it just seems easier to me. Yeah, there you go. Same stuff as this. I actually kind of like the flavor of this. It's sort of like a, what does it say, pineapple, orange, guava flavors. It's actually pretty good compared to most supplements. So, and again, this company, Microbiome Labs, super famous, super great company. All the things they make are good quality. So you could use this kind of a product as well if you wanted. Or Mega Pre, whatever, right? Mega Pre powder. And that's generally 1 to 2 scoops 2 times a day. So you do a couple months of killing the yeast and then follow up with, in this case, the Akkermansia, some prebiotics, maybe a few other things to get that person's strength back, right? Okay, so let me take a break for a moment. I'm gonna get to some questions and then we can do another case. Oh my gosh, there's a lot of questions. You guys are like, all right, it's a question asking crowd now all of a sudden just because I said that. Let me see. I'm not gonna be able to get through all these. So let me see what I can find. High histamine. So with histamine cases, we're not really talking about that today, but you need to do a low histamine diet. Those are incredibly impactful, low histamine diets. Oh, and then how long would you continue this? So that's a good question. After this is completed, I don't know, somewhere between 3 to 6 months. If they respond really well, maybe it's 2 or 3 months. If they really need more support, I would just do it for longer. So that's basically, a range based on how they may respond. All right, let me go back up to the top here and see. I'll repeat the discount code for the GI map class. Let me show that. Where'd it go? Let's see. Let's see it here. Oh, here, this must be it. There it is. Okay, so for those of you that missed it, here's the discount code DSL24. It's QR code that use the DSL24, then it's free. I think it's a $100 class, so you save $100, which is not a bad thing. Let's see here. Root cause of low pancreatic enzymes. That's Erica's question. Stress, you can blame stress on everything or everything on stress. Lack of fresh fruit and vegetables in the diet. Dehydration, stress. Infections, parasitic infections will cause low enzymes. Not chewing your food well enough, not relaxing after meals. It could be something just as simple as that. Oh, high dosages. So Stephanie asked, what do I mean by high dosages? Let me show you. And you gotta be comfortable doing this, like if you're not comfortable, don't do it. But if you're comfortable, like high dosages of enzymes would be 2 at each meal is sort of average. I would say high dosages would be double that. Or probably what's more effective than doing that is doing a combination of different versions of that. So, and the 3 different versions you're going to have are betaine HCl, that would be for the stomach. The enzymes that I just showed, that's for the pancreas. And this is, Dr. Timmons used to always do this. Exactly, this is a Timmons trick I'm going to show you right now. From the 70s and 80s, he did this. I learned this in the 90s. And then gallbladder support. So if you really want to go for it, you do all of these at the same time. Timmons would do this all with everybody. He did this all the time. He would give them betaine HCl, 1 or 2 with each meal, enzymes, so pancreatic enzymes, 1 or 2 with each meal, and gallbladder support with oxbile, 1 or 2 with each meal. That was like his standard thing. Just hit them all. Why not? Get all these secretions going. And if that cures the SIBO, then that cures the SIBO. You don't have anything else that you have to do. And you don't do that forever. How long would I do that for? 3 months, something like that, and then try to cut back. Okay, let's see. Oh, single product for gallbladder function, yeah. So that's the Digestion GB. I'll show you that one more time. Because this is a really important thing. This may be this could knock out some of your, I would say this will knock out a few of your SIBO cases in the next year or so, just this one idea. So Digestion GB, this is the broad spectrum one for gallbladder, easy to use. Just say 1 with a meal, 2 with a meal, somewhere in that range. If you really want to go for it, 2 with each meal, and give that a month or 2 to work its way through the person's system and see. Okay, Digestion GB, that's the product. And the combination products that are all in one are the easiest to use in a lot of different ways. Oh, and I need to show this one other test too. Support for those without a gallbladder, Digestion GB, like 1 with each meal that has fat in it, I would say. Faecalibacterium prausnitzii loves fiber, okay? And hopefully that fiber is happening from supplements, but more importantly from the diet. Let's see. Blastohominus is going to always cause not always. Blastohominus could easily cause SIBO, all right, if you have a blasto infection in somebody. You want to treat the blasto first. You cannot diagnose SIBO from a GI map. Yeah, you need to have a breath test. All right. I would always start with the parasite testing first. I would always do a GI map first. Fix what's on there. If they still have SIBO or SIBO-like symptoms, then you can go after it later. And then I do 3 tests, right, on everybody. Hormones, GI, and organic acids. So because there's like a million questions, let me just cut over to one more case and then we'll see how much time we have. Here, it's great you guys are asking all these questions. That means you should be in one of these classes. Take one of my boot camps or something like that. If you got this many questions, you should be in a class like that. You'll get them all answered, right? Here's another new one. It just came in a few days ago. A little bit of H. pylori, but not much. Wait, no, is this the same one? Oh, sorry, it's the wrong one. Here, this is it. This is the different one. Here we go. A little bit of H. pylori, but not above the reference range. A couple of the virulence factors positive. Akkermansia normal. This one low commensal doesn't look horrible though. The rest of the commensals look really, look at that, pretty nicely lined up. That's a nice pattern there. Opportunistic growth, nothing. This is like a trick test. Okay, the only things going on in this person, this is from this morning's class. This is a really healthy person. Okay, now I remember who this was too. So this is a person who had some kind of stress-related problem. I can't remember what it was. I don't know. Something to do with work or something like that. But this is actually a healthy GI map. They're so rare to see. It's actually kind of something we should dwell on. So nothing on this first page. The virulence factor is positive for H. pylori, but H. pylori itself not positive. Look at these commensal bacteria. They're nearly perfect. You see how they're all in the green except for one that's on the low side? This is hard to accomplish. This is a really clean diet. Okay. This person has no massive GI problems. Even the opportunistic bacteria, which are often elevated, almost all the time you'll see some reds in here, not a single one. And then no parasites. So they need some enzymes and their SIG-A is a little low. That's stress-mediated stuff, okay? Now let's look at the organic acids. Now I promised I'd show this one portion of it. So this is an omics test from Diagnostic Solutions. And the first thing you do when you're looking at the GI part, you go to the GI section, which is way at the end. I wasn't kidding, like way at the end. I always wonder, is it going to show up? Yeah, there it is. Microbial metabolites. So here we have the polyphenol markers. Remember, I've been talking a lot about polyphenols, so you need to know polyphenol status on your patients because polyphenols are one of the 2 main food supplies, along with fiber. Polyphenols are one of the two main food supplies for your commensal bacteria. And these are all polyphenol markers. So when you see an undetectable polyphenol marker, that's not a good thing. Undetectable. That means there's not enough polyphenols in this person's diet. If these markers are extremely high and there's a pattern of all highs, it can indicate dysbiosis. But in this case, with this patient, these being low means you want to give them polyphenols in the supplement form and give them instructions about how to eat more polyphenols. That's going to then, in and of itself, help with the good bacteria. Okay, so those markers are really important for gut function. And this person has a little bit of yeast also. And then I just want to show you this other thing here because it's directly related to what we were just talking about. If I scan long enough, it's going to pop up. Here. So taurine, if taurine levels are low, that could be a potential gallbladder problem. The other amino acid that's related is glycine. So glycine and taurine together help you make bile. So always keep your eyes on the amino acids when you have a gut case. Then there's other ones that are kind of obvious, like glutamine. You can have low glutamine, that could indicate a problem. This case has low tryptophan, that's a really big problem. That could be contraction in the intestinal tract. Remember we talked about serotonin is responsible for motility in the gut. If you're low in tryptophan and thus low in serotonin, that could be your SIBO just sitting right there, just because the body can't contract the intestinal tract very effectively. And let's see if there's anything else gut related on here. Not really. And there's the summary page. Okay, let's get back to questions. And I'll put up the QR code because someone else is asking about that. There we go. There. QR code and the password or thing are there too. Okay. So someone's asking about HCl supplementation for SIBO and eczema. So I don't think you need to worry about specific symptoms. That's one of the beauties of functional medicine, is if they have an HCl deficiency or an enzyme deficiency or a gallbladder problem, it really doesn't matter if they're depressed, have eczema, or have ADD. It's the same solution. So in other words, a gallbladder problem that lowers your ability to absorb fatty acids could cause depression, it could cause bad skin. You treat the gallbladder regardless. So the beauty of functional medicine is we're not really treating symptoms at all. We're just treating these underlying systems. We want to test hormones, test gut, test organic acids, fix all those systems in an integrated way. You got an integrated solution. Can you give too much HCl? So this is a Richard Lord quote. Every nutrient can be a toxicant. You can give too much magnesium, you can give too much vitamin A, you can give too much DHEA. So you got to have someone who's training you, who's telling you how much of this stuff to give. I spent 6 years with Glenn Frieder, every day with Glenn, every day. Hands down the best clinical nutritionist I ever met. 6 years with that guy, every day, day in and day out. Day in and day out, at the gym, at the clinic, in the treatment room, patients over it, day and learning, okay, how much of this can you give? How much of that can you give? What's safe, what's not? You got to have someone teaching you that stuff. There's books on it, you know, that can get you started. But this is why I have the mentorship. Let me just show you here. And this is like $40. It's not like a huge expense. If you haven't bought this yet, you should buy it because this will at least get you started on what to pick here. Yeah, a second, let me find it. I've got it right here. This is from Richard Lord, my current teacher and an amazing human being. And it's called the Handbook of Nutrient Assessments. And it looks like this. And if you type in Handbook of Human Nutrient Assessments, Richard Lord, you can buy it from iBooks. You can buy it from, I think Google Books might have it too. You can buy it online as a PDF. It's $40. And it's got everything that you ever needed to know about every nutrient in a chart form. So like how much vitamin A? 5 to 10,000. How much B1? Up to 300 a day. That's pretty important. You should know that. B2, 200 a day. No problem. You can give 200. Niacin, it's 1,000. That's a lot different. Why is it so different? I don't know. Read the literature. You have to figure that out. B5, 1,000. So some of these B vitamins, the max is 200. Some of it's 1,000. So this is kind of a super important book. It's $40, and it's got, I don't know, a lot of just like page after page after page of this kind of stuff. And that'll get you started. But you still have to have somebody, sitting next to you, or online like I am to just kind of guide you through the whole process. Yeah, if you're struggling with the QR code, you will get emails about how to get the free class, and you can always email the staff too. Okay. Somebody always has some issue with the QR code for whatever reason. Maybe you have like an Android phone that's old or who knows what. The book, let me show you the book again. Handbook of Human Nutrient Assessments. I'll show you the cover. There you go. Richard Lord. 200 pages, packed with information. Can HCl alone work? Yeah, absolutely. Because if you take HCl by itself and you make the stomach more acidic, when that acidic food content hits the small intestine, what happens? The small intestine freaks out. It goes, wow, something acidic just hit. This isn't good. What am I going to do? I'm going to have to buffer that with pancreatic enzymes. So the more acid, the more appropriately acid the stomach is, the more your pancreatic enzymes start to kick in. Oh, well, now somebody's asking the greatest question in the world. Is there a link to your mentorship program? Thank you for even asking that. Let me show you guys here. I think we're starting one. We're starting one in April. We were just talking about the end of April. That'd be great. This is Lucine is asking. So if you go to, I don't have a link right here, but if you go to the Kalish Institute classes page and you cruise down past level 1, which is kind of rudimentary, entry level, but still good. Level 2, which is like a little more in depth. Then at the very bottom, mentorship with advanced lab interpretation starts April 29th. So just go to the classes page, scroll to the bottom, Lucine, and then you can check that out. It's around $1,000 a month, $1,300 a month for a year. You can pay up front for the whole thing. Somebody's asking how much it is. Here's the details on it. So what is it about? What's the mentorship about? It's a whole year of this. Every week, you have an hour. You submit all your cases. Every week, there's another 3 or 4 hours of classes that you can listen to. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of cases coming through over the course of the year. And we just hammer on lab interpretation. And it's exciting when people say, hey, it's my first case. I did all 3 tests, adrenals, GI, organic acids. Let's put it together. And we just do case after case after case. But it's not just like one lab. It's learning how to interpret multiple labs in complex patients and design protocols for them. And at the end of the year, anyone, if you know anyone who's done the mentorship, at the end of the year, people can interpret labs. I mean, my students get jobs at the Cleveland Clinic. My students get jobs all over the place because they're good. And if you don't spend that kind of intensive training learning how to interpret labs, you're going to be bad at interpreting labs. Who's going to want to see you as a patient if you don't even know how to interpret the testing? So this is like an essential educational experience if you really want to understand functional medicine. And it's a year. It's a lot of money, but not really, For what you're getting, it's really the rest of your career being created here. So if you're serious about functional medicine, my main interest is getting people into the mentorship because I want to train full-on clinicians who are really doing this. But we have all these other entry-level classes also because a lot of people just aren't ready for this yet. But if you're ready for it, set up a call. You can talk to Jennifer, you can talk to me, and we'll get you going, okay? All right. There's no CME because this is all hands-on. Like we're actually telling you what lab company to order, what supplement company to use, what the dosage is. So this is kind of the antithesis of CME. And CME are not allowed to talk about specific brands or products. And that's why IFM struggles so much to try to do clinical education because they're mostly doing CME. This is non-CME intentionally. This is like, it's like a residency program in functional medicine, basically. It's like and you're with a group of 10 or 15 other doctors who are all starting their practices together with you. And so you get this It's not peer pressure. It's more like peer support, you know? And people learn fast when they're under pressure. I tell you, there's nothing like being in an hour of lab interpretation 4 times a week. You're just like, oh shit, what did he say about DHA? Ugh, I'm gonna write that down. And then it comes up the next time a few weeks later, like, oh, I remember that. You know, it's just like boom, 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 boom. And this is how I learned, just learning under fire, okay? And you can be, so mentorship students include medical doctors, chiropractors, acupuncturists. We have a social worker right now and a pharmacist, dentists, nutritionists, personal trainers. Anyone can take the class if you're interested in doing this stuff, okay? But now we're getting all these, let's see. Similar program for interpreting labs for non-doctor wellness professionals. Yeah, just set up a call with Jennifer, and that's for Cynthia. She'll answer the questions about that, okay? The well-educated non-doctor can hang with mentorship. You know, it's not you know, too overwhelming. So Diana's asking, does the mentorship include lab interpretations for GI map, omics, and Dutch? Yep, that's kind of what we do. So it's adrenal or hormones like Dutch, GI map, and omics, and integrating that all with one patient. By the end of the class, you should be able to interpret all 3 of those labs for a single patient and design a program that extends out for 6 to 12 months to get that person better. I can tell you my favorite student right now is this medical doc named Sujanya, and she's brand new to functional medicine. She's a lovely human being, and every week she has a miracle case that she has submitted. And every week she's very not shy, but she's very humble. She'll say, "This is my first case, my very first case." But her hair stopped falling out, Dr. Kalish. I think it's going really well. And then the next week she'll have another one like that. And it's like week after week after week. So if you learn how to interpret labs and you're a good doctor in general, you're a nice person, you're going to get results that are borderline miraculous, okay? It's pretty cool. All right. Oh, and then Eric is saying, best investment I ever made. Thank you, Eric. He's one of our mentorship grads. It does seem like a lot of money, but it's not. You know, you're going to make the money back in like your first 4 or 5 patients, okay? All right, let's see. Now, expand a bit on the yeast overgrowth treatment. I think that's worth doing. So let me grab that from here. So I want to teach you the philosophy of it, and then you can just do this on your own. So this is straight out of the Dr. Timmons playbook. You want a combination combo product, let's call it. And the ones that I use are AC Formula 2, that's from Pure, are really like Candicid Forte for some reason, just because it works really well. That's from Ortho. So those are both combo products. They have a whole bunch of different things in them, and you dose those pretty high. Don't try this if you don't know what you're doing. You don't want to make people sick, but if you know what you're doing, this is the way you do it. And then you want 2 single ingredient products. You can't go wrong with grapefruit seed extract. That's kind of classic. And oregano oil, or oregano as the Americans say. So the general philosophy though is a combo product with 1 or 2 single ingredient products. You do that for 2 months and then stop and see what happened, and then reevaluate, see what you need to do. Okay. Let's see. Oh, H. pylori. That's a good question. So I have a really strong opinion about H. pylori. I've been doing the same exact H. pylori treatments for 30 years. We did a study with the Mayo Clinic on this. Eight out of the 9 patients got rid of their H. pylori, documented in the scientific literature. So for H. pylori, I use Mastica from Allergy Research Group. That is a 500 milligram pill. This is a lot of Mastica. Don't do this if you don't know what you're doing, okay? Zinc, L-carnosine. This will make somebody sick if you don't know what you're doing. From Pure, and that's a 2-month protocol. It's as powerful as an antibiotic, so you can make people really sick. If you're brand new to this, I don't know, cut it back and do something like that. But that's not going to really work either. So this is the real program. Just be careful because it could make somebody really sick if you're not careful, right? So when the GI map says high, you would go after the H. pylori, absolutely. And if they're on a proton pump inhibitor, you got to be extra careful then. That's a little more complicated. But that is a tried and true H. pylori protocol that works really well. Okay. Let's see. That'd be Diana. Yeast treatment, we talked about that. If you're asking questions about the classes still, just set up a call with Jennifer or with me, and we can talk about it. Let's see where we at in time. Oh, we're 1 minute over. Let's see. Let's see if I can do one or two more questions, and we're going to wrap it up. None of this should be done during pregnancy or breastfeeding. None of this should be done during pregnancy or breastfeeding. None of this should be done during pregnancy or breastfeeding. Okay, this isn't safe to do unless you really have someone on your team that's an expert in pregnancy and breastfeeding that can tell you what's safe and not safe. Okay. I think we got most of them covered. All right, I'm going to run now. Thank you guys so much. We'll have more of these classes in the future, and I appreciate all your participation. It's a great group, and I look forward to talking to you soon. All right, bye now.